And we're back, YouTube. Thanks for tuning in. As always, I appreciate that. Today, let's review Moonscars. And that is a Metroidvania-style 2D platform game with Dark Souls-inspired kill, die, and repeat type of gameplay. You play this woman warrior in a godforsaken place, and there's a story about revisiting memories of a previous life. So you need to piece together what happened, but it's all extremely vague, and a lot is lost in translation, which is unfortunate. And I say to developers, leave the vagueness of a story to From Software and their Souls games. There's really nothing wrong in telling a straight up story. But the oppressive atmosphere in this game is well established, with some of the best pixel art I've seen in a while. All kinds of little animations going on that really bring the world alive. For instance, you'll see the character breathing the cold air, and you'll see the reflections of the character in the water. All these little things show attention to detail. Now, combined with the moody, churchy music, really sets the tone of this strange and eerie place. Now, as you go through the levels, you do notice there's quite some repetition in the assets, which is understandable. I mean, some areas do look very distinct, but the levels do drag on quite a bit, unnecessarily long, I think, and that makes the whole thing feel a little bit monotonous after a while, but also confusing because the way that the levels are laid out. Now, sometimes, for instance, you open up a new area after you've slain the boss, but you come to a dead end because there's this gate that won't open, and the game won't tell you why it's not opening. So you are looking around, have I missed something? Do I need a key? But it turns out you need to backtrack all the way to another location to find some opening that you might have missed, and then that new opening sort of circles all the way back to the place where you got stuck, and you get to the point where you can pass that specific gate. And this is what the game does quite a lot. You know, there are quite a few dead ends. You need to find the right lever to pull, and that stuff can be quite confusing because, again, the levels do tend to look quite samey after a while. So a little more diversity in colors, in design, would not have hurt this game. But still, the jumping, dashing, blocking, hacking, slashing your way through the levels is a lot of fun. It looks great. Again, it's very well animated. The controls are responsive, although there is a problem, I think, with the wall jumping that feels off, as well as dashing, because you use one button for dashing, but the same button is also used for the super dash. So if you press that specific button a little bit too long, you'll activate that dash, that special dash. It'll make you dash further away, and that can be a little awkward as well. It also relies a lot on platforming, and that can be tricky as well. There isn't a whole lot of room for error, I believe, when you are jumping and that sort of stuff. It has to be quite specific how you do that. Now, further on in the game, you need to pull or push the occasional lever to open a gate, avoid pitfalls and traps, and that sort of stuff. So it doesn't really deviate from what you come to expect from a Metroidvania style game, but it doesn't really do anything particularly interesting or new with that formula. What it does do is that when you, for instance, get into a room, what happens is that most of the time is the gate sort of closes behind you, and you need to fight your way through hordes of enemies that sort of spawn right there and then. And only when you've killed all the enemies, the gates open up again. That gets a little repetitive after a while because it does that quite a bit in this game. Still, the enemies you are fighting are very imaginatively designed and varied. Again, very well animated, much like the main character. Sort of grotesque type of monsters and strange beasts and whatnot. Of course, the fighting can be a little chaotic because of the 2D perspective, and enemies can overlap each other. so it gets hard to see what's actually going on, and you'll just be pushing the buttons and trying to hope that you hit something. Now, if you kill enough enemies, you can choose between various passive buffs that you can enhance your character with on the fly, which is a nice mechanic, whether that be that you will do more damage, or your critical hit chance becomes higher, or that you get a second wind so that you are healed instantly. Those type of things are very nice as you go through the levels. You can also heal yourself up with the souls that you collected, which is nice. There are also items that you'll find throughout the world, amulets that you can switch out that will permanently push certain attributes of the character, whether, for instance, one that will let you deal more damage, more critical damage as well, or that received damage is lessened by using the amulet. So that stuff is really nice. You don't really upgrade your character, although there are also upgrades for a higher health bar or a higher witchery bar. It's basically your magic bar, but the fighting doesn't really change that drastically because of it. It just gives you a little bit more edge in the combat, which I like, actually. You know, it gives you a fighting chance in this game. You don't really have to use it if you don't want to, but if you don't have the reflexes, there are ways to sort of remedy that with the amulets, which is nice. And also from the mirrors, you can teleport to other mirrors so that you don't have to track back all the way, although there's quite a bit of distance, as I said, to traverse, since the levels do drag on, so to speak. There are characters you can meet throughout the game. They'll have side quests for you to do, but most of the time that boils down to finding a specific item somewhere in the mazes that you've already crossed, or you might have overlooked something. Sometimes they offer an item or two to buy, but I did notice that after like 3/4 of the game, you pretty much bought all the items that were on sale. So there isn't a whole lot you can do then. You've probably also unlocked most of the witchery you want to use in the combat that you really like to use. So those are the spells you can unlock with the souls, for instance, which gives you a little edge in combat again. So that's nice. So there's really no incentive to come back to the mirror and sort of further tinker with that. There's no real reason to do so. At some point I had like these clads. I had 60 or 100 clads with me. There was really no use for them anymore. So that was a bit unfortunate. So you sort of run out of things you can do at the hub, so to speak. So now, as I said, this is sort of a Souls-like experience as well. So if you die, then you go back to the place, well, you try to go back to the place where you died to pick up your dropped souls, hopefully. Now, things are made a little bit more difficult, because if you die, there's also a blood moon, which sort of makes the enemies respawn harder to kill. But it also feels like the blood moon mechanic makes the game artificially more difficult, which I think is just unnecessary. I would have liked the blood moon to be something to look forward to, actually. You do get more souls for killing enemies during the blood moon, but that just wasn't enough reward, I think, for me. It still felt like the game was punishing me for dying too many times. So not everything works in Moonscars. Also there I experienced some frame rate drops and freezes and crashes, actually, which was really unfortunate. But even so, there is something here that kept me going till the very end. And it's just kind of difficult to put my finger on it. Obviously I did like it, and I think it has to do with the combat that is very satisfying. Also the bosses are well developed, and they require various tactics. Different bosses require different tactics as well. whether it be that you need to block incoming blows, or you need to dash, or some other mechanic that you need to use in order to kill the boss. They were all doable, have a good chance of surviving. It's not extremely difficult, although, again, the Blood Moon thing I didn't like. So yeah, that's what I think of Moonscars. Let me know what you think. Have you played it? Did you like it? Let me know, and see you next time.